Here is your clean, narration-only voiceover script. Every word is kept exactly as you wrote it, only cleaned of stutters, repeats, and filler. All profanity is left intact. Every single mention of a channel name has been replaced with once loyal. I'm still shaking typing this, but I need to get it out somewhere. For context, I've always been the family disappointment because I chose to pursue music production instead of joining my dad's construction business like my brother did. Growing up, it was constant criticism about how I was wasting my life, how music wouldn't pay bills, how I'd come crawling back eventually. Despite all that bullshit, I've managed to make a decent living as a sound engineer and producer. Nothing crazy famous, but enough to pay rent on my own studio apartment and actually enjoy what I do. My parents have never once visited my studio or asked to hear anything I've worked on. My brother Lawson always calls it my little hobby whenever we're forced to be at the same family events. I hadn't been to a family gathering in almost 8 months after the last Christmas disaster where my dad got drunk and went on a rant about how I was throwing away generations of family legacy, or whatever. So I was honestly shocked when I got an invitation to my sister Kimberly's wedding. She's always been Dad's favorite since she married a guy who works in construction. Not even our family business, but close enough for Dad, I guess. We were pretty close as kids, but she gradually started treating me like shit to win points with our parents. Still, I thought maybe this was an olive branch. Like, maybe she wanted to fix things. I actually spent money I was saving for new equipment on a decent suit. Even got a haircut and new shoes. Drove 2 hours to the venue, feeling nervous but kind of hopeful, you know. When I got there, the security guy at the door checked his list, then looked at me weird. He asked for my name again, checked his tablet again, then grabbed my arm when I tried to look past him. I wasn't even being aggressive, just confused. That's when I noticed the doors to the reception hall were partially open. And what I saw fucked my entire family was in there. Aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone, all holding up their phones. My dad was standing near the door with Uncle Danny, both recording. My dad literally stepped out and said, "You pathetic fool. You actually thought we'd let our biggest disappointment inside. This whole invitation was to see how desperate you still are." I just stood there while my brother came up behind them, phone in hand, saying something about how he was live streaming this to his followers. He was laughing about how I bought a suit and probably spent my entire net worth just to try to be part of the family again. My mom was there too, telling me to go back to your studio where you belong and that real family is inside, and how I was tonight's entertainment. I couldn't fucking believe it. The security guy was looking uncomfortable, but still blocking me. Then Kimberly came out in her wedding dress, with her husband. She was smiling like this was the highlight of her day. She told me they had a betting pool about whether I'd actually show up, and she won $500 because she knew I was predictably pathetic enough to fall for it. I don't know where it came from, but I just got eerily calm. Like something inside me just switched off. I looked at all of them, Dad, Mom, Lawson, Kimberly, all the relatives I grew up with, and said, "Remember this moment. You'll all beg for my forgiveness. Every single one of you." Then I just walked away while they laughed, drove back to my apartment in complete silence. No music, no calls, nothing. Just planning. The construction industry in our city is smaller than they think. The music industry has connections they'd never understand. I spent the next 48 hours making calls, sending emails, and cashing in favors I've built up over the years. Then, at 3 a.m. this morning, my phone started blowing up. First, it was Lawson calling 6 times in a row. Then my mom texting in all caps. Then my dad leaving voicemails that started angry, but quickly turned into something that sounded almost like panic. I haven't responded to any of them. I'm just getting started. They think music is just a hobby. They're about to find out how wrong they are. I've spent years being told I'm nothing while building something they couldn't understand. Now I'm going to use every connection, every favor, every bit of influence I have to show them exactly who they fucked with. I know this sounds extreme, but you don't understand how methodical they've been in putting me down my entire life. My dad pulled strings to get me rejected from the college music program I applied to. My mom told relatives I had mental problems whenever I stood up for myself. My sister would steal my equipment and hide it before important gigs. My brother once deleted all my files before a deadline because it was funny to watch me panic. This wedding setup was just their most elaborate public humiliation. They've been doing this shit my whole life. I'll update when there's more to share, but right now my phone is still blowing up and I'm enjoying watching them squirm. Anyone who says but their family can fuck right off. They made their choice. Now I'm making mine. Welcome back to Once Loyal. Update 1. Holy fuck. The support for my last post was unexpected. For everyone asking how I'm doing, I haven't slept much, but I'm focused as fuck right now. So you guys wanted updates on the fallout. First, let me give some background on why my family's always been this way, because a lot of you asked. Construction has been our family thing since my grandfather started the business in the 70s. My dad took over in the 90s, and it was always expected that me and my brother would join. My earliest memories are being dragged to job sites, handed tools I could barely lift, and being told this was my future whether I liked it or not. The music thing started when I was 13 and found an old keyboard in our basement. Dad actually laughed when I asked if I could take lessons, said it was a waste of money. So I taught myself using YouTube tutorials, staying up until 2 a.m. with headphones so nobody would hear. When I was 16, I saved up from mowing lawns and bought basic recording equipment. My dad found it in my room and smashed my keyboard against the wall, saying I was disrespecting the family legacy. My mom just stood there watching. She never stands up to him, just goes along with whatever he says. The real breaking point came senior year, when I got accepted to a music program instead of the engineering school my dad wanted. He literally tore up my acceptance letter at dinner, then called the admissions office pretending to be me and declined my spot. I only found out when I called to confirm housing arrangements. I moved out that night, crashed on friends' couches, worked 3 jobs, and slowly built up my equipment again. Meanwhile, Lawson joined the family business right after high school and became the golden child. Kimberly used to actually be on my side. When we were kids, she'd sneak into my room to listen to the stuff I was making. But when she saw how my parents treated me versus Lawson, she figured out the winning strategy, started calling my music noise and laughing at me with them. Fast forward to now. I've spent the last 7 years building connections in the local music scene. I work with indie artists, do sound engineering for venues, produce beats, all that. I make enough to pay rent and live comfortably doing what I love. What my family never bothered to learn is that I've actually built a solid reputation. I know practically everyone in our city's music scene. Which brings me to the first part of my revenge. My sister's new husband Gary, turns out he's been trying to break into music production on the side. Found this out through mutual connections months ago, but never mentioned it, because why would I? The dude never even talked to me at family events, just laughed along with everyone else. After the wedding stunt, I made some calls, sent some emails, shared the video of them humiliating me. Yeah, I had a friend record from across the street. Always document the shit. Within 48 hours, Gary was blacklisted from every studio in a 100-mile radius. His upcoming interviews canceled. His demo reel? Nobody will listen to it now. 2 days after the wedding, Kimberly called me 13 times. I finally picked up and she was crying, saying Gary was freaking out, blaming her and her family for ruining his career before it started. Apparently, they had a massive fight where he called her family toxic and said he never should have gone along with their psycho prank. I just listened, then asked her if she enjoyed winning that $500 from the betting pool. She hung up. Lawson showed up at my apartment yesterday. Dude actually pounded on my door for like 10 minutes. When I finally opened it, he tried to act all tough, saying I needed to fix whatever I did because Gary was threatening to leave Kimberly. I just stared at him until he got uncomfortable, then asked how many views his TikTok live stream of my humiliation got. He pushed past me into my apartment, knocking over a chair. Started ranting about how I was being petty and ruining Kimberly's marriage over a harmless joke. I reminded him about the time he deleted all my files before a deadline, or when he told a venue I had drug problems so they'd cancel my gig. Funny how it's always just a joke when they do it, but ruining someone's life when I fight back. He actually tried to grab my phone, saying he was going to call our dad. I shoved him away and told him to get the fuck out. He stumbled backward, knocking into my coffee table, then got all quiet and said I'd regret this. That dad was already talking to his lawyer friends about suing me for tortious interference or some shit. Good luck with that. I've saved every nasty text, every mocking voicemail, every social media post they've made about me over the years. Plus the wedding video. Yeah, that's going to look great in front of a judge. My mom sent me a long message saying I was breaking her heart and destroying the family. This from the woman who stood by while Dad tore up my college acceptance, who told relatives I had mental problems whenever I stood up for myself, who laughed at the wedding while I was being humiliated. I blocked her number. Uncle Danny called this morning from a different number after I blocked his first one. Apparently Dad's company just lost a second contract. Weird coincidence how I happened to be friends with the daughter of one of their biggest clients. All it took was showing her the wedding video and mentioning how they treat people who don't fall in line. Oh, and Dad's supplier relationships, the one suddenly under review? Turns out one of their main material suppliers has a son who plays in a band I've worked with.
Small world, right?
Dad himself finally showed up at my studio this afternoon. First time he's ever set foot in my workspace. He tried to act all calm at first, asking if we could talk reasonably. Then when I didn't immediately cave, he started shouting, saying I was acting like a child, that this little tantrum needed to stop. I just sat there, let him yell himself out. Then I played him the wedding video on my computer, asked him if he thought potential clients would enjoy seeing how the owner of a family business treats his own son. He got real quiet, then switched to threats, said he'd sue me for defamation for interference, for anything his lawyers could think of. I pointed out that you can't defame someone with their own words and actions. And, technically I haven't done anything illegal, just shared some information with people who might find it relevant. He slammed his fist on my desk, knocking over my coffee, then stormed out saying this wasn't over.
He's right about that.
This is just getting started. Next up, the family business itself. Dad's always been sloppy with documentation. Cuts corners when he thinks nobody's looking. Takes cash payments that don't quite make it into the books. Nothing major enough for serious trouble, but enough to make clients nervous if they knew. And I've got receipts, lots of them, from years of hearing him brag about how he outsmarted inspectors or saved money on permits. We'll update again when there's more. Right now I need to prepare for whatever legal shit they try to throw at me. But don't worry, I'm not backing down. They spent years trying to break me. Now they're finding out exactly what I built myself into while they weren't paying attention. This is Once Loyal. Update 2. Thanks for all the support on my last 2 posts. Things have escalated fast this week. I'm running on energy drinks and spite at this point, but I've never felt more focused. So, after my dad stormed out of my studio last week, I waited a couple days before making my next move. I've been documenting my dad's shady business practices for years. Not even intentionally at first, just shit I'd overhear at family dinners or holidays. Dad always bragged about how he'd work around regulations or save on permits whenever he thought it was just family listening. When I was 17, I used to help Uncle Danny with the business filing system back when they still thought I might join. I made copies of a bunch of invoices and contracts that didn't match what I heard Dad telling clients. Nothing major enough for criminal charges, but definitely the kind of stuff that would make clients nervous and inspectors take a closer look. I've kept all these documents in a folder on my cloud storage. Never planned to use them. Just kept them as insurance after the wedding stunt. That insurance policy is finally paying off. I started by sending anonymous tips to Dad's 3 biggest competitors about upcoming project bids. Just basic info on Dad's bidding strategy that I'd heard him discussing with Lawson over the phone. Dad always puts these calls on speaker for some reason. Nothing confidential, just the kind of stuff that helped the competitors undercut him. Dad lost 2 more contracts this week. The family group chat I got removed from years ago has been blowing up according to my cousin, who still talks to me. Lawson's freaking out about cash flow and Dad's apparently been rage drinking every night. The real genius move though, I reached out to Uncle Danny's son, my cousin Tyler. We used to be tight when we were kids before the family drama pushed us apart. He still works in the supply side of the business. I asked if he wanted to grab a beer. Tyler showed up looking nervous as hell. He knew about the wedding thing but claimed he wasn't there because he had to work. Whatever. During our 3rd beer, he started venting about how toxic the family business has gotten, how Dad's been taking out his frustration on everyone, and how Uncle Danny's considering pulling his supply connections because Dad's behind on payments to him. I acted sympathetic, asked a few casual questions, and bam, got all the info I needed about which suppliers were on shaky ground with Dad. Turns out Dad's been struggling financially for months before this, and has been juggling payments. The business looked successful from the outside, but they're actually operating on razor-thin margins. I didn't even have to do much. Just reached out to 2 of those suppliers through mutual connections and mentioned I'd heard rumors about payment issues with Dad's company. That's all it took. They immediately moved Dad to a cash upfront payment model instead of the net 30 terms he'd been using. For a construction business that relies on floating costs until client payments come in, this is a major problem. Lawson showed up at my apartment again yesterday, this time with a black eye. Apparently, he and Dad got into it after they lost another bid. He was way less aggressive this time, almost desperate. Asked if we could talk about fixing this situation. I let him in, mostly because I was curious how bad things had gotten. He looked like shit. Obviously hadn't slept much. Said Dad was drinking heavily and taking it out on everyone. The business is facing a serious cash crunch with the new supplier terms, and they might not make payroll this month. He kept asking what I wanted, what it would take to end this war. I just laughed and reminded him about the TikTok live stream he did at the wedding. Asked how many followers he got from humiliating me. He actually started crying, which was weird as fuck to see. Said he was just going along with what Dad wanted, that he didn't think it would go that far. I told him it was a little late for that, and if he wanted to fix things he could start by sending me the full wedding security footage. He tried to claim he didn't have access to it, but I know he's lying. I showed him the door. Mom showed up this morning. Didn't call first, just started pounding on my door at 7 a.m. I was still half asleep when I opened it, and she pushed past me into my apartment without waiting to be invited in. She looked around my place with this disgusted expression like my perfectly normal apartment was some kind of crack den, then hit me with a guilt trip immediately. How I was destroying the family, how Dad wasn't eating, how Kimberly's marriage was in trouble because of me. I just made coffee while she ranted. When she finally ran out of steam, I asked if she remembered when Dad tore up my college acceptance letter. She acted like she had no idea what I was talking about. Classic mom, rewrites history whenever it's convenient. She switched tactics when the guilt trip didn't work, started with a fake waterworks, saying she just wanted her family back together. I reminded her that she stood there laughing while I was being humiliated at Kimberly's wedding. She claimed she was just surprised and didn't know what was happening. Bullshit. When that didn't work, she got nasty. Said I was always the problem child, always making everything about me, always too sensitive. Said my little hobby was never going to amount to anything, and I should just apologize to Dad and come work for the family like I was supposed to. I lost it at that point. Told her to get the fuck out of my apartment. She refused, so I picked up my phone and started recording her. That shut her up quick. I walked to the door and held it open until she finally left, but not before saying I would regret turning my back on family. The family business Instagram account, which Lawson manages, has been quiet for over a week now. No new project posts, no updates. Usually they post at least every couple days. Their website also has a notice saying they're restructuring client intake, which is basically code for we're not taking new clients because we can't handle the current ones. Uncle Danny called yesterday from another new number. He was a lot less hostile than before. Said he was caught in the middle of this family drama and just wanted to protect his own interests. Claimed he had nothing to do with the wedding prank and was just there because Kimberly invited him. I reminded him that I literally saw him recording me with Dad. He got quiet, then admitted he knew it was wrong but didn't want to go against my dad. He said Dad has always had this weird competitive thing with me. Ever since I showed interest in music instead of construction, apparently Dad sees my rejection of the family business as a personal insult, like I'm saying I'm better than him or something. Uncle Danny said Dad's pride is the real issue. He can't stand that I'm doing okay, without his help or approval. The most interesting thing Uncle Danny let slip: the business is barely holding on. They've had issues with inspections on their last 3 projects, and one client is threatening to sue over some structural issues. Dad's been cutting corners for years, and it's finally catching up to him. I didn't even have to do anything with that info. Karma's handling it, but I did make some calls to friends in local government who might be interested in taking a closer look at recent permits Dad's company filed. Gary filed for separation from Kimberly yesterday. My cousin texted me the screenshot from Gary's Facebook status update change from married to it's complicated, with a cryptic post about toxic family dynamics and reevaluating priorities. Kimberly's been calling me nonstop since then, leaving increasingly unhinged voicemails. The first few were just her crying, but the latest ones are straight up threatening, saying I ruined her life, that I'll pay for this, that she's going to tell everyone what a monster I am. I've saved every message. Dad finally sent me an email yesterday. No apology, of course, just a formal request to cease and desist all tortious interference with family business operations. Included a bunch of legal jargon, obviously copied from some website. Said if I didn't stop he'd be forced to pursue all available legal remedies. I forwarded it to a friend who's a lawyer. She laughed and said it's basically just expensive toilet paper. There's nothing illegal about sharing public information or opinions about a business with potential clients or suppliers. As long as I'm not lying or breaking confidentiality agreements, which I'm not, there's not much he can do. Tonight, I'm finalizing the last phase of my plan. I've been putting together a documentary-style video with all the evidence, the wedding footage, saved texts and emails from years of family abuse, documents showing Dad's corner cutting, recordings of their threats since I started fighting back. Not going to post it publicly. That would be too easy for them to dismiss as a crazy son trying to get attention. Instead, I'm going to share it selectively with people in their social and business circles. The country club member's dad tries so hard to impress. The church group mom brags about being part of. The business association's dad uses to get contracts. Let them see exactly who they're dealing with. Not illegal, not defamatory, just transparent, and a hell of a lot more effective than anything they could have imagined when they planned their little wedding prank. We'll update when the shit really hits the fan because, trust me, it's about to. This is Once Loyal. Final update. First of all, holy fuck. Thanks for all the support. Sorry for the delay on this final update, but these past few weeks have been intense, and I wanted to wait until I had real results to share. So, after finishing that documentary-style video I mentioned in my last post, I had to decide exactly how to use it. My first instinct was to blast it everywhere, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, the works. But I realized that would look desperate, and they could just spin it as me being the crazy one. Instead, I went strategic. I created a private link and sent it to exactly 57 people. Not random people, specifically the ones who matter in my family's social and business circles. Country club members, church group leaders, business associates, neighbors, dad's golf buddies, mom's book club, family friends they've known for years. Each person got a personalized message. I wanted to share something that happened recently. No pressure to respond or get involved, but I thought you should know who you're dealing with. Then I waited. For 3 days, nothing. Complete silence. I started wondering if my whole plan had failed. Maybe nobody watched it. Maybe nobody cared. Maybe I'd wasted weeks of effort for nothing. Then on day 4 it started. My phone rang at 8 a.m. It was Mrs. Patterson, an old family friend who's known my parents since before I was born. She sounded shocked, asking if what she saw in the video was real. I confirmed it was, and she just went quiet for a few seconds. Then she told me she'd already called my mom and told her how disgusted she was. Apparently Mom tried to play it off as me editing footage to make them look bad, but Mrs. Patterson wasn't buying it. By noon, Dad's business partner was calling. They've worked together for like 15 years and he was pissed, not at me, at Dad. Said he'd been suspicious about some of the accounting for a while but never thought Dad would do this kind of shit to his own son. He wanted to know if I had more documentation on the business practices I'd mentioned in the video. I didn't share anything that wasn't already in the video, but I did point him towards some public records he might want to review. That was Wednesday. By Friday, he'd filed paperwork to dissolve their partnership. The church group moms, so proud of being part of, held some kind of emergency meeting about the situation with the family. My cousin's wife is in that group and texted me saying Mom showed up expecting support but left in tears when multiple people confronted her about the wedding video. Dad's country club buddies have been giving him the cold shoulder. 3 of them canceled their standing golf games. One guy, who has kids around my age, apparently told Dad he was a disgrace as a father right in the middle of the clubhouse. Kimberly and Gary are officially separated now. She moved back in with my parents last week. According to my cousin, their house is like a war zone. Everyone blaming each other for what's happening. Kimberly blames my parents for ruining her marriage with the wedding stunt. Dad blames Lawson for not handling the PR problem better. Mom blames everyone but herself. Of course, the family business has lost 6 more contracts in the past 2 weeks. 3 employees quit. 1 supplier completely cut ties with them. Their local reputation is tanking fast. Turns out people in small business communities talk, and nobody wants to work with a company run by someone who'd publicly humiliate their own kid for laughs. Uncle Danny finally grew a spine and pulled his supply connections entirely. He called me last weekend, actually sounding remorseful. Said he'd enabled Dad's behavior for too long and was partly responsible for how I'd been treated. He's starting his own separate business now. Lawson showed up at my apartment again 3 days ago. This time, he looked completely defeated. The business is failing and he knows it. He tried a new angle, offered me a partnership role if I'd call off the dogs, said we could rebuild the business together once Dad retires. I laughed in his face, reminded him about all the times he'd sabotaged my music, called it my little hobby, and made fun of me for not joining the family business. Asked if he remembered live streaming my humiliation and making fun of my suit. He just stared at the floor. Dad sent a formal letter through some lawyer threatening to sue me for tortious interference and defamation. My lawyer friend reviewed it and said it's basically just expensive toilet paper. I haven't done anything illegal, just shared factual information with interested parties. She sent a response basically telling them to pound sand and reminding them that any lawsuit would make all this even more public. The letter must have been Dad's last desperate move because yesterday he showed up at my studio. Didn't call first, just appeared at the door looking like absolute shit. Hadn't shaved in days, clothes wrinkled, eyes bloodshot. For a second, I almost felt bad for him. Almost. He started with anger, because that's his default. Said I was destroying everything he'd built. I just stood there silently, which seemed to make him more agitated. Then he switched to bargaining, offered to make things right if I just call off whatever I'm doing. When I didn't respond to that either, he finally broke down, started crying right there in my studio doorway. Said he didn't understand why I couldn't just do what was expected of me, why I had to be difficult my whole life. Even in his moment of desperation, he still couldn't see that he was the problem, not me. I finally spoke. Told him I never wanted to destroy anything. I just wanted to be respected for my choices. That the wedding stunt wasn't a one-time thing. It was the culmination of years of emotional abuse. That I wouldn't be calling off anything, because I wasn't actively doing anything anymore. This was just the natural consequence of their actions. He got quiet, then asked what it would take to fix this. I told him nothing would fix it. Some things can't be undone. Some bridges stay burned. He left looking defeated in a way I've never seen before. Mom's been calling daily from different numbers since I keep blocking her. The voicemails alternate between guilt trips, threats, and tearful pleas. In the latest one, she actually admitted that the wedding stunt was maybe going too far, but still somehow blamed me for escalating instead of just talking to us like an adult. Kimberly sent a long email yesterday. Started with the usual accusations and blame, but somewhere in the middle there was almost an acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Said she got caught up in trying to please our parents and lost sight of who she was. Said she missed when we were kids and I'd show her how to use my keyboard. Then immediately went back to blaming me for ruining her marriage and life. Classic Kimberly. Almost self-aware, but not quite there. Gary actually reached out separately. We met for coffee, which was weird as hell. He apologized for going along with the wedding stunt. Said he'd had doubts, but didn't want to rock the boat with his new in-laws. Said marrying into my family was the biggest mistake of his life. I almost feel bad for the guy. The family business is basically on life support now. They've had to downsize their office, let go of most employees, and are only handling small jobs now. Dad's reputation in the local industry is shot. Turns out people don't want to work with someone who cuts corners and treats people like garbage. As for me, my studio business is actually doing better than ever. Turns out all those connections I've built over the years while my family mocked my little hobby are paying off. I've got more clients than I can handle, and I'm expanding into a bigger space next month. I don't feel the burning rage I did after the wedding. It's more like a cold satisfaction now. They fucked around. They found out.
Simple as that.
Some family members have reached out, cousins, a few aunts and uncles. Some supportive, some angry, some just curious. I'm polite but distant with all of them. Where were they when I was being belittled for years? When I was being set up for public humiliation? I don't know what happens next with my family. Maybe someday there will be some kind of relationship again, but it won't be on their terms anymore. I spent 29 years trying to earn their respect and approval. I'm done with that now. The most important thing I learned from all this: when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. My family showed me exactly who they were at that wedding, and now everyone else sees it too. Oh, and remember what I said to them as I left the wedding? Remember this moment. You'll all beg for my forgiveness. Every single one of you. Well, they're begging now. And I'm not in a forgiving mood. This is once loyal.